Hey gang, I get emails from people really on a daily basis telling me about the miserable situations that they're dealing with their digestion and all the problems that can come about with that. And I really understand what that's like, and I had a lot of problems, and so I know firsthand what it can feel like to just feel lost and not to understand what's going on with my body. So I kind of wanted to pull back the curtain a little bit and let you guys in on, the type of emails that I get from people, the type of situations that they're dealing with, and my thought process as I'm trying to think through what could be going on with this particular person. So I wanted to read this email that I got from Lona, and I don't know if I'm even saying Lona's name right. So I apologize ahead of time for all the stuff that I do wrong with your name. But Lona writes that it appears that I should not take betaine HCl unless I have a high protein rich meal. Well, I don't have protein rich meals. Most meals, which are hardly anything because it makes me sick to eat, no appetite at all, might have 2 or 3 grams of protein. But could I take 1 capsule of HCl for the sake of killing off the critters? Or might that be a problem for the stomach, taking HCl when it's not needed? Also, I have every symptom in the book: painful gas, burping, constipation, acid reflux, etc. I'm miserable and sick. So if my problem isn't protein malabsorption, what is it? I've seen undigested food in my stool, but not all the time. But my constant sick feeling is ruining my life. My tummy hurts all the time. At night, I take anti-gas medicine, 2 or 3 Tylenol, perhaps an anti-nausea medicine, trying to stay away from antacids, and still I am so distressed. I cannot sleep well. And we all know that most doctors don't know anything. Mine doesn't look past the constipation. He says take Miralax or Synacot, which we know are not long-term answers. Now, the reason I receive so many emails like this is because this digestive process is a complicated situation, and the information that's available on the mainstream is really not helpful if a person is wanting to actually fix the actual underlying cause of what's going on. Most things that are available in the mainstream can work to reduce some symptoms, but they're not going to fix what's actually causing the problem. And until a person fixes what's actually causing the problem, then the problem is going to persist. And I'm not here to talk about any broken medical system or anything like that, but I can say that going through 23 different doctors that were not able to help me fix my digestive issues when I lost my voice for 8 years helped me understand that I might need to find my own answers in some circumstances. So one thing that I look at, just to really pull the curtains back when I'm looking at my point of view after doing this for a very long time, is that when people send me questions like this, I can always tell if someone has read my books or has gone through our totally free digestion course because they just ask better questions. Most people that are looking at mainstream information are going to ask the questions that I was asking when I first started learning about what's going wrong with my body. My questions were like, how come my doctor didn't tell me this? I wasn't asking the questions of what's actually going on with my body. I just wanted to know, why isn't somebody fixing this for me when I asked them to fix this for me? So one thing that I view when people send me questions like this is like, why haven't you gone through our free digestion course? So a long time ago, we set up this totally free course because this information can be complicated, and people would read my books and it kind of walks you through how to look at your digestion to get an idea of what the underlying problems are for you, but it can just be a little bit hard to bring all that new information in. So we made this course to kind of help our book readers a little bit get some visuals of what's going on with digestion. And it's filled with a lot of really short videos that just kind of walk you through looking at the symptoms that you're dealing with, looking at your body chemistry and how your body's operating to get ideas of what's really creating the trouble. So this course is totally free, and it's quite in depth in the way that it can help a person fix some issues. And the course should probably be $500, but we made this free just because we were hearing from so many people like Lona that are just suffering. And I knew what it was like to suffer like that. So if we can create something that's going to allow some people to find their own answers, that's worth the effort that went into do this. But if somebody's not going to go through it, my first question is, why aren't you doing that? It really walks you through understanding what's going on with you and your body. So if you have not seen that, I'll put a link in the description below, just like I do in pretty much every video that I make, so that you can access that totally free digestion course. It does not cost anything but your effort. And effort is always going to be a part of fixing actual issues. So that's always my first question. I did look up Lona's email address, and I did see that she had not signed up for this course yet. So that's the first thing that I would tell somebody to do. Go through the course so that you can get some ideas of what's going on with you. Because the main confusion that comes about when we're looking at digestive problems is that most symptoms that can come about that people call digestive symptoms, most of those symptoms have more than one possible underlying cause. So I can't look at somebody's symptoms and just tell them, oh, well, that's easy, just do this, because we don't know which underlying cause is really causing the problem. So I kind of want to go through this email a little bit and break it down and kind of show you the way that I view things and the questions that I'm asking myself when I'm looking at a case like this that helps me get insights into what could really be going on. Let's jump in.
TC Hill is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So just remember that I'm not a doctor and I don't know Lona, so I don't know her specific situation. If it's a her, Lona, her, I don't know. I see how wrong I am about these name things. Don't count on me for that situation when it comes to names. But I don't know Lona. I don't know the situation that is going on, so I couldn't possibly be giving her any recommendations. Him any recommendations? Why do I keep doing that? All right, so what we want to look at is let's kind of break down what was being said here so that we can look into what could possibly be going on. And the best thing about the digestion course is that it also has a person look at their chemistry and simple tests that they can just run at home using tools you pick up like at a pharmacy or a health food store to get an idea of how the body's operating that can give more insights into what the most likely underlying cause can be for a problem. So Lona first says, well, I don't have protein-rich meals. Most meals, which are hardly anything because it makes me feel sick to eat, no appetite at all, might have 2 or 3 grams. But could I take 1 capsule of HCl for the sake of killing the critters? So when this is being said, we're looking at the fact that most digestive issues are going to come down to either a lack of stomach acid, bile that is not flowing properly from the gallbladder, or a lot of the problems that can come about from those issues. A lot of issues are going to have to do with some type of overgrowth that has gotten into the digestive tract, and that's what Lona's talking about with critters. I say little varmints and just beasts that come into the system a lot, but they usually get in because that stomach acid was not there like it was supposed to be to fry them as they come in on the food that we're eating. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong with the digestive system, but most of them are usually caused by one of these malfunctions first. And so we have to look at these things first and get an idea. So a lot of people end up improving their digestive issues by, instead of turning off stomach acid more, like most people are going to do today, they increase their stomach acid so that they can actually acidify the stomach, so that they can break the food down and get the nutrients out of that food. So Lona is asking about, can I just take 1 capsule of HCl? Because we talk about that you want to use HCl with a meal with protein. And, significant amount of protein, not like a protein shake that's already broken down. Because if you were to acidify the stomach more in a meal where it really didn't need a lot of stomach acid, it could create some discomfort for some people. The body uses stomach acid really to break down any food, but it's going to use more for protein meals. That's what it's really made to do, is to break down protein. But somebody's saying, oh, can I just use 1? But when we think back to some of those symptoms that Lona said were taking place there, the discomfort in the stomach, the acid reflux, in a lot of cases when someone first starts taking HCl, they're only going to take 1 because they want to see how much of a dose do they really need. And that increase of stomach acid has the ability to really magnify a lot of symptoms if you're not going to acidify the stomach enough to fix those symptoms. And some symptoms like acid reflux, you really have to acidify the stomach enough. Acid reflux is usually caused by having some stomach acid, but not enough stomach acid to trigger that lower esophageal sphincter valve to close when we're digesting our food. It's triggered by stomach acid. So if somebody puts 1 capsule in there, now they've increased the amount of acid that's in the stomach, but it may not yet be enough to trigger that valve to close. it's usually going to magnify the symptom because now more acid is coming back up. We know things are coming back up because that valve's not closing. So we put more acid and now more is going to come back up, really magnify those symptoms. So in issues like that, I want to think through, well, what's going on that's creating all this discomfort? And usually it's a lack of stomach acid because when food doesn't get acidified, it's going to break down by rotting and fermenting. And that creates all these like gases and toxins and pressure and gook and all this stuff in the digestive tract that can really magnify a lot of symptoms. So that's what I usually look at. But when I have an idea that there's a lack of stomach acid, I also know that it's really likely that some overgrowth has come in because the front door was open. They left the front door open by not having enough stomach acid. And there's a lot of reasons that the body may not be able to make enough stomach acid. We talk about that in a lot of videos. So just know that that's really common to see that. And so the thought is, well, there's probably an overgrowth there. And an acidic environment in the stomach does have the ability to kill off these critters as they're coming in. So I understand what Lona is asking here. But in a lot of cases, just adding acid alone is not going to kill off a significant overgrowth. It's just not going to. Because this overgrowth often puts out this alkaline waste that alkalizes the stomach even further. So now when you put a little bit of acid in there, it might not even be as effective as what you're putting in because it's getting neutralized. So sometimes people will work up to like 5 capsules of betaine HCl, which is something that you can use to acidify the stomach in a supplement form. But they'll work up to 5 capsules, which is usually about equivalent to what the stomach would make if it was working correctly. But it might only be as effective as 1 or even none because it's all being neutralized by this alkaline waste from an overgrowth. So most people need to take more aggressive steps using some type of natural antimicrobial, and we talk about that in a lot of videos, where you need to wipe out this overgrowth a little bit. And then when you acidify the stomach, it's not going to magnify as many symptoms. A lot of the reflux stuff that happens when we have an overgrowth is from all the gases that they put out. They put out all these gases, which creates pressure, and that pressure can magnify bloating or cramping or reflux by pushing things back up. So I have heard from clients that, they didn't understand that they should use HCl with protein meals only, and they were taking it with meals that were just carbohydrates, and they didn't have any discomfort that would come from, having too much acid in the stomach because it was all being neutralized by this overgrowth that was in there. So it wasn't really being effective anyways. And they actually did feel better because they were at least acidifying the stomach a little bit to break down these carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a lot easier to break down than protein. So I have heard from clients that have done that. But again, the reason that a person would really feel lousy and gravitate more towards eating very small amounts of protein is because they can't acidify that protein and break it down. That means it's going to sit there like a rock in their stomach for like 6 hours. They're going to feel awful. So they're like, well, I'm not doing that again. I'm just going to have a small amount of protein. So the problem is, how would a person ever fix that if they don't get to where they can acidify their stomach correctly so that they can consume more protein? So most clients, I don't want them changing the way they're eating until they've started to improve some of these digestive malfunctions, or they're going to feel lousy. So we might want to gravitate slowly into increasing more protein as we're taking steps to acidify the stomach. But again, if somebody has a real overgrowth, they might need to reduce that overgrowth a little bit using antimicrobials like D-limonene or mastic gum or some of these things that we also talk about. Now, Lona goes on to say, or might that be a problem for the stomach taking HCl when it's not needed? And it really can, but again, if someone's stomach is really alkaline from some overgrowth and they're having all these symptoms, it's probably not going to create that problem. The problem that it would create is the acid going in, mixing with all this alkaline waste that's in there from the overgrowth, can create like this fizzy mess when these opposite pHs collide in the stomach where they should not be colliding. They shouldn't be happening there. And that fizzy mess in the stomach can create a lot of discomfort for a lot of people. Lona goes on to say every symptom in the book, painful gas, burping, constipation, acid reflux, etc. So if my problem isn't protein malabsorption, what is it? Well, who's to say that it's not? It's probably everything malabsorption. If we don't have enough acid in the stomach and bile is not flowing to calm down and help neutralize those acids and help us break down our dietary fats. And all those things happening together can trigger the pancreas to then put out bicarb that helps us neutralize stomach acids, and all these enzymes that help us break our food down further. All of those things have to happen together. And when any of those things aren't happening, not only can it create problems and symptoms and digestive malfunctions and an inability to get the nutrients out of our food, but some of these malfunctions can over time create malfunctions in other areas. If stomach acid is not going into the duodenum, that's what triggers cholecystokinin to tell the gallbladder to bring out that alkaline bile down. So when the acid is not going in there, the gallbladder is not being called on as often, and now that bile is going to sit in the gallbladder longer and continue to concentrate until it concentrates into sludge or even stones. And now, even if it does get called on correctly, it's not going to come down, or it's not going to come down as well. And now the person doesn't have enough stomach acid, or they don't have bile. So now they're really not digesting any type of food correctly. So when I'm looking at these symptoms, painful gas, burping, acid reflux, that really screams that the stomach is not acidified enough. Usually that gas is going to come from, some type of overgrowth. The burping is coming from the gases that come from either the overgrowth or things rotting and fermenting and not breaking down correctly. And acid reflux is usually from a lack of stomach acid, but it could also be from like a hiatal hernia where that valve can't close because that stomach has been pulled up into the diaphragm a little bit. So we always have to consider that there's more than one cause that can create these issues, especially if we're looking at constipation. Constipation can have a variety of causes, and a lack of stomach acid is definitely one possible cause there. So Lona has a lot of things that are all of a sudden pointing to this lack of acid. It's not just one symptom. There's a lot of things. So now I kind of rank that a little bit higher as a possibility. But with constipation, a person can also be dealing with what we call an anabolic imbalance, where the body is stuck kind of in the nighttime state at the cellular level most of the time. And that can cause the body to send more water to the kidneys and less to the bowels, which can really make that stool dry and hard and difficult to move. So a lot of times when people have really chronic constipation, they're going to have multiple underlying causes, and maybe it's a lack of stomach acid. Because if there isn't enough stomach acid, now all that food that we ate is going to lean more on that alkaline side. It doesn't get acidified correctly. It stays more on the alkaline side, which will cause it to move through the system slower and can create constipation as well. So we really want to look at somebody's chemistry and see, are they leaning too far on that anabolic side? And is that what's creating this constipation? Or is it more likely that maybe the overgrowth is doing it, or the lack of stomach acid, or a combination of all those things? Lona then says, I've seen undigested food in my stool, which is pretty much always a sign of a lack of stomach acid or something else going wrong with that digestive system. And then Lona says, but my constant sick feeling is ruining my life. My tummy hurts all the time. And this, I hear about this all the time. Not only the discomfort that a person has, some people, if they eat, they're balled up in the fetal position on their bed for 3 hours. They can't move or do anything. But other people also have problems, like where I have to go to the bathroom, so I can't really leave the house. So there's a lot of things that can really affect a person's life. I lost my entire life, everything I had going for me, because I couldn't talk. How was I going to make a living if I couldn't talk? It took me a long time to figure out how to do that. So I understand when these types of issues are affecting somebody's life, and it becomes very crippling to that person. But when we're seeing undigested food and somebody's stomach always hurts all the time, it's usually because of an overgrowth creating all of this toxins and all these gas and pressure and things. But it could also be maybe there's like a gastritis type issue or even an ulcer type issue. And these issues are usually caused by an overgrowth in the stomach. They're not caused by too much stomach acid like we believed in the 80s. So we have to consider that possibility. If that's the issue, if there's some type of gastritis issue and a person puts betaine HCl in their stomach to acidify the stomach, once they start really acidifying the stomach, then that's going to really magnify that pain. And then they'll be like, oh, wow, well, I know that that's really a real magnified pain. That's acid on an open wound or acid on inflammation. And I might need to take steps to improve that gastritis first. So Sometimes pain in the stomach can be really tricky to figure out because you don't know. Is it in the stomach? Is it in the small intestine? Or is it even in the large intestine? Because all of those areas kind of overlap each other, but also pain can kind of radiate to different areas in some of those circumstances. Like gallbladder pain, a person can feel like in their shoulder and in their, different places. So sometimes pain can radiate when we're looking at the digestive tract. So we have to keep that in mind too, and don't just assume that the problem is in the stomach because the person has stomach pain. Stomach pain can come from a variety of different parts of that digestive tract. Lona goes on to say, at night I take anti-gas medicine, 2 or 3 Tylenol, perhaps an anti-nausea medicine, trying to stay away from antacids, and still I'm so distressed. So this is the type of question that I get where I know somebody has not been through our digestion course because they're using all of the methods that mainstream would tell you to do. I went to WebMD and they said to do this and I'm doing this and I'm still not better. What is going on with me? Well, none of these things work to fix the actual underlying cause of the problem. They're all designed to relieve a symptom. And when we're just going to relieve a symptom and leave the actual problem there, creating problems, it's going to create more problems. So I'm going to put a link in the description below to this study. It's the risk of upper gastrointestinal complications associated with non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, glucocorticoids, acetaminophen, and the combinations of these agents. And acetaminophen is the main active ingredient in Tylenol. And so a lot of people are just taking these medications to relieve symptoms while there's studies out there showing that these things magnify digestive symptoms. So, oh man, I really got ripped off here. So when we look at this study, it also talks a lot about how we need to understand that sometimes medications have a synergistic effect. And what that means is a person doesn't get the effect of one medication plus the effect of another medication. They get the effect of a medication multiplied by the effect of another medication. So there's really this synergistic effect. And this study talked a little bit about how the combination of these things seems to create even more digestive trouble long term. So when someone's wanting to fix the actual underlying cause, they really need to educate themselves about these things. And I'll put that link so that you can look through that study and dig into that a little bit. But the steps that Lona is taking are not steps that I ever use with any of my clients. So it makes sense to me that there would not be any improvement created because she's not taking any steps that would actually correct the actual underlying cause of anything going on. And Lona goes on to say, and we all know that most doctors don't know anything. I don't view that as true, just so you know. I think, it's really not the doctor's fault when they don't understand the underlying cause of what's creating a problem. The system is just not set up to teach them that. They're trying to work with a lot of people who don't want to put any effort into their health. Hey, give me something that fixes this symptom. So they're being asked to do this miracle thing of fixing a problem with zero effort, so they don't have a lot of tools that are going to fix the actual underlying cause. Fixing the actual underlying cause of any health issue is always going to take effort. You're never going to do that with just a pill, whether it's a medication or a natural supplement. Most things need actual effort. Lona goes on to say, mine doesn't look past the constipation. He says take Miralax or Senokot, which are not long-term answers. Right, these are just made to help relieve a symptom. So when we're looking at this issue, if I'm bringing on this person as a client, then I'm having a really strong inclination that there is very likely some type of digestive overgrowth. And there's a lot of studies that show a lot of these natural antimicrobial agents can be as effective as some medications when it comes to correcting these overgrowths. And a lot of them don't have real side effects or downsides to them. So whether I know a person has an actual overgrowth or not, when they're showing this many symptoms, I want to test out, hey, how do we do when we take steps to reduce an overgrowth there? And does that create improvement or not? And most of the doctors that talk about correcting the actual underlying cause of digestive issues with these natural agents hold that same viewpoint as well. And that's not even where I got that viewpoint. I got that from most of the books that I've read about these topics. So we want to look to see, can we improve those situations? But because we also need to look at a person's chemistry and have an idea of Why can't their body make stomach acid? Can we take steps that will allow the body to start making more of the stomach acid on its own as we're reducing this overgrowth? Do they have their bile flowing correctly? If they don't, we really have to fix that before we acidify the stomach, because we don't want all this acid moving out of the stomach into the small intestine without the ability of it to be neutralized correctly. It's both sides of digestion really have to work correctly to not only allow us to get the nutrients out of the food, but to relieve a lot of these symptoms that are coming about. Bloating, that all this stuff that's going on, this I have no appetite. All these things can happen when bile isn't flowing and you can't emulsify or break down dietary fats. If a person can't emulsify dietary fats, they go undigested, which causes them to become like rancid and become toxic to the body. It creates all this byproduct that really shouldn't be there. So we really need to be able to break down those foods. And that free digestion course that I talked about kind of walks a person through looking at these different factors that can give them insights into whether their bile is flowing or they need to take steps to improve that as well. So all these factors go through my head when I'm looking at a case. And usually, I've been doing this a long time and I have pretty good ideas of what's going on, but I always want to look further to understand, am I right or not? I don't want to get cocky about it. I want to look at all the pieces of the puzzle to get as much information as I can. So what I want to know is the effort that I'm putting in going to bring results or have a higher chance of bringing results, or am I just throwing darts at the remedy dartboard? If I'm doing that, most people are going to throw some darts, not see any answers, and come to the conclusion, well, I'm just broken. I can't fix this. I've tried everything. Well, you've tried everything that people said can fix that symptom, but you're not learning to work with your body. You're working against your body. A lot of the remedies to fix a symptom, if the cause is different from the person that it worked for, that remedy can now magnify that symptom. It can make the situation worse. So we really want to look at what's going on with our body, and then we have a much better chance of the effort that we put in actually bringing the results that we're looking for. So every person, every case is going to be different. I look at things a little bit different, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what I'm looking at when I'm just reading an email like this. So if you're dealing with issues like this yourself, you can kind of get an idea of ways to think through that. And don't forget that free course is available. But the weird thing is that you have to go through the free course to get the benefits of it. Just signing up, that doesn't do anything either. The effort has to be there to get real answers for yourself. Now, because we talked some about wiping out, an overgrowth in the stomach or the digestive tract, you can jump over right now and check out our video on ways to wipe out bad bacteria in the stomach. I can't wait to hear about your results.